Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward, and this is Face to Face. Drugs, gangs, incarceration, all part of a life that our guest this week knew all too well. Vinnie Lillie spent more than a decade behind bars for the crimes he committed. But today, Lillie is giving back as an outreach worker and a patrol member with Winnipeg's Downtown Community Safety Partnership. Vinnie, thanks so much for doing the show this week.
Thanks for having me.
You grew up here in the city of Winnipeg. Can you tell us maybe a bit what it was like for you growing up?
Like what it was like growing up in the city here?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess I did grow up in the North End, so it did have a lot of times when it was pretty rough. So yeah, I just think that, you know, obviously as the way that we are, we just have to kind of adapt to our surroundings. And I've always had, I grew up in a very colored, like I have a pretty colored past. So I think just like I've always learned to kind of adapt to the negativity that I was surrounding myself with.
What type of negativity was that?
Well, I mean, obviously just the groups of people that I started to associate myself with was just different types of stuff, like getting involved in drinking, and then obviously drugs, and then comes with drugs, sometimes there's gang activity, and I got involved in gang activity at a young age.
We mentioned the book here, and I'll just show it, All Eyes on Me. The details, some of that that you're talking about. Can you tell us a bit about, I guess, how you got involved with drugs and the street life?
I think that just growing up, I just, obviously we all don't have the best of circumstances when we were growing up, and I think just for me, that's just the way that it was in my family. It just from the type of background that I came from, we obviously didn't have we didn't have a lot of money growing up, and so I think that, you know, when you're coming from a background like that, it just kind of really affects the types of circles that you're involved in hanging around when you're growing up.
Mm-hmm. Did, I guess, poverty play a big role in how you ended up getting involved with the gang?
Yeah, I guess, again, I guess because of the poverty that I did grow up in, it just kind of like started to direct me in the direction that I went in when it came to my social groups that I did hang around with.
Are you comfortable telling us how you ended up getting involved in a gang?
Well, I didn't get, like, when I was younger and I was a teenager, I was involved, like, kind of like associating with gangs when I was younger. I didn't actually become a member when I was a youth, but I did associate and was involved with gangs at a young age. But I think, again, it was just like I grew up without a father, and I think that had a great effect on my decision making, and obviously I was gravitating. I found that I was looking for things that I was lacking, I think, like we all do. And so I was lacking that older role model. And so I think that I just found myself gravitating towards other older males, looking for that sense of belonging, or, you know, looking to fit in, or maybe that guidance. And so I think that's probably what had the effect on just who I ended up associating myself with.
As we mentioned, you did time in Stony Mountain Federal Penitentiary that's right outside of Winnipeg here, that is, by all accounts, a pretty rough place. What was your experience like there?
My experience there was very, very rough. I mean, I guess not to say that anybody that goes into prison has a really good experience there. It's not a place where you really want to have a good experience, in my opinion, because, you know, it's kind of, if you want it to be a deterrent, then, you know, you don't want it to be, you know, a walk in the park. Mm-hmm. So my experience was it just was deadly, and just because of the fact that obviously, like every single person that comes into the prison system, they come in there scared. And a lot of the men that I know that I talk to about their experiences in prison, they'll never tell you about how they were scared, right? And it's because it's like kind of part of that toxic masculinity where men are taught that they can't express themselves and they got to just toughen up, and they can't look weak, or they can't cry. And so I think that for me, I've learned that it's a real freedom for me to express myself and just be myself, and to express those emotions that we all share, which is that I was scared when I came into the prison system. So
you served more than a decade, right? In prison. Are there experiences that stick out for you still?
I mean, I suffer from some pretty bad PTSD considering what I had been through and my experiences there. So I mean, like I still have, like for me, one of the main things for me is like if I go into the washroom in a public place and I use the urinal, I'm always have that fear that someone's going to attack me from behind, because I have had that happen to me countless times where I have been attacked from behind. And so that's one of the main ones that still stands out very clearly to me, is that if I go and use a restroom in a public place and I use the urinal, I always have that little slight moment of fear that someone's going to attack me from behind. So
that's awful to hear. Jails are supposed to be punishment, obviously, like you mentioned, for crimes committed, but also prevent a person from doing future crimes and rehabilitate those who are in the system. Is there much rehabilitation going on in Stony Mountain?
I honestly don't think that there is, and I think honestly it's getting worse just because of the fact that it's just the resources and the programming and stuff like that is just not there. And it's just like they need to catch up. Like they need to really start focusing on the types of programming that they offer to the people for their specific needs.
What would be some of the ways that you'd like to see improvements in rehabilitation in the system?
I think, well, for sure, like the resources for one is like the huge thing that you need to have the resources there for the individuals when they get out of prison, because of the fact that we're all just want to be, a lot of us want to be comfortable in our situation, whatever it might be. And so when you get out of prison and you don't have the resources there to help you reach the goal that you have to stay out of jail, then really what you do is you just go back to what you know. When things get hard, when things get uncomfortable, you want to be comfortable, so you go back to what you know. And so when the resources aren't there to help you stay away, then recidivism it's a thing,
Did they help you in any way with a plan of action for when you were going to be released?
Well, I think that's the thing, is that there's a problem with the two communications of when you're there and you're getting out, it's a thing, it's one thing, but then when you actually leave the institution and you're out, it's like two totally different worlds, right? And so it's like they need to come together in order to create more successes within the individuals that are released from prison.
Are there other things that you could point to, issues within the prison system, which we know is, in some provinces it's like 90% Indigenous people are making up the makeup of the prison?
Well, I mean, it's a sad fact that it is a lot of like the percentages of what you just mentioned, but I just think that as an individual coming from that position in a lot of different times in my life, I know that I just needed a chance. And all these individuals that are being released from incarceration, they literally just need a chance. They need to feel like they need to feel wanted, need to feel trusted. Because one of the main things that holds us all back from what we want in our life is a lack of belief in ourselves. And so all the individuals, they just don't feel like they're enough, and everything that they go through just beats them down, and they continuously stay in that cycle. So they need to be given a chance, and that's why with the DCSP we've created the Clean Slate program, and it's a program where we employ people who are released from prison and jail. And so this is another thing what I was talking about. Individuals need to be given the chance that they deserve. And so as soon as you step out of the jail and you're being put right into an employment situation, it's such a game changer.
For sure. Vinnie, your story is one of, recovery and hope, and we're going to talk about that. We just have to step aside for a quick break, and then we'll continue the conversation here with Vinnie Lillie. Stick around. Welcome back to Face to Face. Our guest this week is Vinnie Lillie, who's the focus of a book called All Eyes on Me, a story of addiction, recovery, and hope. And Vinnie, before the break, we were talking about your time in prison. Was there a moment, I guess, that you realized that this wasn't the life that you wanted to lead?
Well, it's funny you say that, because I think honestly the way that what I've noticed through my journey is that we are all born good people, and so every single day of our life is a fight between good and evil for every single one of us. And so for me, it was always just that fight between good and evil from within me, and so I just continuously had to keep pushing through the negativity that I was involved in, and just realized that, as much of a product of my environment I became, that wasn't who I was.
I guess part of that product of who you became was being involved in a gang. How does one end up and leave a gang?
It's a very tough cycle because, again, it's just the repetitiveness of the things that you do get involved in when you're involved in the gang it's really hard, especially if you're in prison and you're pretty much living with your gang. It's really different considering if you're out on the street and you're living on the street and you're at home in your own place and you're in a gang. It's so much different than being in prison, because then when you're in prison, you're literally living with your gang.
Right. I guess, are you comfortable talking about how you managed to escape that part of your life?
Yeah, I'm definitely comfortable. I believe that my story has helped a lot of people, and that's why I really love getting out and telling it whenever I can. And so I think that when it comes to talking about that stuff, I really don't shy away from it at all, because people need to hear it and they need to know that it is possible, and that there isn't anything wrong with the individuals who get involved in gangs. It's just we're all born good people, like I said. And so unfortunately for me, I ended up getting kicked out of the gang. So, but again, some gangs, the way that they work is that you have to take a beating to get out of the gang. So I got kicked out of the gang, and in order to get kicked out of the gang, you still need to take a beating. So I ended up having to take a pretty severe beating from 4 other gang members.
Often on social media, and I'm sure you see this still all the time, we see a glorification of the gang life, pictures with all the boys, the wads of cash and weapons, things like that. What's your message to those who see that way of life as a way out of poverty, or the life that they want to live?
Well, I think that one of the things I always like to make sure that I point out is that there is nothing wrong with the individuals that are involved in the gangs. You know what I mean? I don't ever, no matter what I say, it's never an attack on the individuals that are still involved in gang life now, because I know good and well what it's like, and I know that they don't want to be in the positions that they're in. They don't want to be doing the things that they're doing. But like I said, to become products of their environment. And at the end of the day, I say, there's a lot of people in prison that have done bad things, but when those cell doors close at night, those true people emerge, those good people emerge, and they're reflecting on their life. And I'm telling you, they're not happy with where they're at. They're not happy. They're not saying how happy they are with what's gotten them to where they're at in their lives. They're reflecting on their life, and they're wishing that it could be better and it could be different.
You speak to a lot of youth at schools and other engagements dozens of times. What's your message?
I know it might sound silly or it might sound stupid, but one of my main messages is just to be yourself. And the reason why I say that is because we live in a society that's designed to destroy our sense of self. And it's literally a genocide on authenticity. So from the day that we're born, we're pushed towards and stretched and pulled away from who we truly are as an individual. And that's what I think the real battle is in this world, is just to try and focus on staying connected to who you truly are as a person. And I think that's what's really strengthened me in my journey, is allowing me to focus on that and keep myself closer, as close as I can get to who I truly am as a person.
As somebody who has now recovered, people can see your hat, the DCSP, the Downtown Community Safety Partnership here on the streets of Winnipeg. What are some of the things that you're seeing out there on the streets?
I think there's just the homelessness, I think, is a really big thing, obviously, in our city. And I know that there's a lot of judgment coming from people about the homeless people, and, you know, and how they're addicted to drugs and they're addicted to drinking and, you know, all that kind of stuff. But the truth of the matter is while you're pointing your finger at these people who are addicted to something and saying, why the addiction? That's not the question. The question is, why the pain? You know, the individuals who are addicted and who are homeless and stuff, all of them are suffering from severe trauma. And this is the root cause of the addiction, and this is the root cause of all the problems that are going on in the city, is the trauma. Because this is what's affecting, all of us go through trauma in our life, and we all deal with trauma in different ways. And so I believe that is the root cause of what is really causing the city to struggle in that area.
Is it certain trauma that you hear from people? Do they have the common stories here that you hear?
I think sexual abuse is a real big one. It's a really bad one. I was sexually abused at a young age, and so I know how crippling that can be, and how the fact that we really, you know, it needs to be talked about more, and it needs to be expressed, and the individuals who go through it need to realize that there's nothing wrong with them, because that is the real struggle within that trauma, is that what happens is you go through it and then you think that something's wrong with you, or you did something to deserve it, and you just literally you don't talk about it because of that, the shame, you know. And so you're basically just crippling yourself, and the power is in just talking about it and expressing yourself and realizing that, you know, as sad it is that it happened, there's nothing wrong with you. You need to realize that you are a good person.
We are talking about, we just recently had a whole episode of APTN Investigates on this, where people were calling, you know, that sexual abuse and the trauma from that a hidden crisis. Is that something that you think would ring true?
I definitely agree with that. It's hidden, you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's is one of the huge problems, is the fact that what you say and what you think is what you'll be, you know. And the thing is like when you talk about depression, you know, you have to break that down. Depression, what is depression? It's to press something down. So a lot of what happens is the things that we go through in our life, we depress that stuff down, we press it down, we suppress it, we repress it, and we don't talk about it. And literally, it's like a poison that eats you alive, and it really can destroy an individual. As I know for a fact that for me, I have repressed so much that I don't even remember a lot of my childhood.
Like your book says, you know, it's about recovery and hope. What's given you recovery and hope?
I think just like I was saying about, you know, realizing that, you know, we are all born good people, and you need to hold on to that, and we need to hold on to it as true and realize how true it is that, you know, we're born good people. And the problem is that we beat ourselves up for the decisions that we make, but we can't beat ourselves up for the decisions that we make when we're in survival mode, because it's just not who we truly are as an individual.
Vinnie, you're going to talk more about the good work that you do now. We're just going to step aside for one more quick break here, and then we'll continue the conversation with Vinnie Lillie. Stick around. Welcome back to Face to Face. Our guest this week is Vinnie Lillie, who's the focus of a book called All Eyes on Me, a story of addiction, recovery, and hope. Vinnie, the foreword to your book is written by Mitch Bourbonniere, who our audience is likely pretty familiar with. He helped pull the Bear Clan in Winnipeg out of hibernation a few years back, and now runs Ogichita, Pimatsawin, Kinamatawin, which works with some of the city's most vulnerable individuals, which you work with that group as well too. What has Mitch and that group and the work that you do meant for people, do you think, in this city?
I think that just like one of my words is to push the word of hope. I think that's one of the things that OPK provides for the community is a lot of hope. And so yeah, it works with a lot of at-risk youth and all that kind of stuff. And so that is where like a big struggle is for like kids that are in care and stuff like that. He really reaches out and touches a lot of hearts in the CFS area for the kids.
How many of the people mentioning CFS that you meet on the streets do you think had some sort of connection to the child welfare system?
I think there's a very huge percentage of the people who are involved in the CFS, and if they're not involved in it, they can be affected by some other, maybe a family member that might have been involved in it somehow.
You mentioned the Clean Slate program. Can you tell us a bit more about that and maybe an experience of somebody that you know that it's helped? Yeah,
I'm very proud about the Clean Slate program because of the fact that they are positioned at the shelter that I work at. It's 190 Disraeli, called Nadinawaymak. And so I see them every day and I see the progress and I see what they've been doing, and it's really nice to see the individuals that are given the chances and just watch them. They shine, and they just like they look like completely different people in that situation.
What do you mentioned the crime and the people that are pointing fingers, and we hear a lot about crime in Winnipeg right now and homelessness, the violence that's and addictions that are out on these streets. What do people out there need from the general public?
What do people need from the general public? I think honestly just support and no judgment, you know what I mean? Because I think that's one of the things that causes a lot of conflict is the judgment against the individuals who are going through their journey, and like you gotta understand that it's not an easy life to come from.
As we get ready to go here, Vinnie, what is your message for those looking to stay on the clean and a good path?
I think my message is probably for everybody to just focus again, like on how they really are a good person, and don't allow the mistakes and failures that you make to cripple you, because that's what life is all about, is making mistakes and failures, and that's how we learn and get better at life, is by making mistakes and making failures. I literally say that I failed my way to success.
Why do you say that?
Well, just because of the fact that people always ask me, what was it that did it for you, that caused you to make the decision to change? And it's like literally there was no one actual situation. It was so much different failures over and over again. I was literally living the life, the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results.
Well, we're proud that you got the results that you have been looking for. Vinnie, appreciate the work that you're out there doing on the streets, and for coming in this week.
Thank you very much for having me.
And that is all the time. We'll show Vinnie's book one more time here. You can get this at Friesen Press. There's also numerous copies in the Winnipeg library system as well. That's all the time we have for this week. I'm Dennis Ward. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you back here next week on Face to Face.